Hello, Seth. You're up next.
Hey Bart.
Hey, Seth. Where are you playing out of?
So this is a 2-5 game from the Seminole Hard Rock Hollywood.
1K cap?
1K cap.
Okay.
Yeah, or 1800 effective for this hand.
All right. So 1800 effective. Any straddle or anything?
No, there was an occasional straddle, but for the most part, it wasn't on.
Okay. Start us off here.
So the villain in this hand is a good thinking player. I hero called him down with third pair earlier in the session when you bet 325 into 500 on the river, and I was good. So he may perceive me to be a little more on the sticky side. So in this hand, villain is the button, and he opens to $20.
Okay.
Hero in small blind with 5 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 3 bets to 80.
5 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 3 bets to 80. One quick thing about this, I actually, on my latest CLP video, which was a couple days late, I actually just put it out before the show. There was one hand. This is for the website subscribers. There was actually a hand in a 3-blind structure where a button opened and the guy in the big blind, so in the middle blind, had 5-5, pocket fives, and 3-bet. And I was like, this is kind of close. Now here, this guy, you're in the small blind and it's 2 blinds, and obviously you're incentivized to 3-bet off. It's just kind of close, like how far down you go with where you 3-bet your small pairs. And again, you could have some calls, I suppose, not many in a 2-blind structure, late position versus small blind. There's perfectly all right to have just a plan of I'm playing 3-bet or fold against a button open. Sometimes where I might deviate from that is if the guy in the big blind is just never squeezing, like if he's some sort of like OMC type. The other thing though too is that, if you play out a button open and then just a small blind flat, or even sometimes just an out of position flat with a small pair, you wonder if you like run that simulation over and over again, if 5-5 and small pairs for sort of set mining are just going to lose money overall. Like, what would you have done with like deuce through 4-4? Is this your cutoff?
Fives is probably bottom, yeah.
So do you fold deuce through 4-4 against a button
I
open?
do, yeah, against
Okay,
button open.
fair enough. All right.
And the big blind here was a squeeze happy player, so
Okay, well, there you go. Then definitely flatting is no good.
yeah.
All right, so you 3-bet to 80.
Yep, and button calls.
All right, so button call.
And one thing I do want to point out, like with some of these smaller pocket pairs, I mean, I just find that the population under 4 bets pretty drastically, even in these button small blind spots where they can 4-bet some weaker hands. I just never see people show up with like king 6 suited here from the button 4-betting.
And it's interesting. I mean, who knows what other people are doing, but if you are playing again, if you're the button, like if I'm your opponent, right, and on the button, and I know your strategy in the spot is 3-bet or fold from the small blind, I should expand my 4-bet range. But like you said, because every hand that you're playing is coming in for a 3-bet, right? But like you said, you just don't see that often. So, but the guy does have position. All right, 160 away to the flop.
Yep. So the flop is queen of hearts, 9 of spades, 5 of hearts.
Oh, wow. That's nice. So you flop bottom set.
Flop bottom set, yeah.
Okay.
So I thought through a couple different options I had here. One is to just go big for 3 streets and get the money in, like 150 flop, 450 turn, jam river. And then on, assuming blank runouts. And the other would be to bet small on the flop and then overbet turn on a blank turn and jam river.
How about check raise flop?
I did briefly consider that, but I thought it would just maximize fold equity, and I didn't think you would call with maybe even some weak queen X, like queen 10 suited, might even fold out on the flop.
On the flop, really? Because here's my thinking. What kind of jumped out at me as possibly check raising here? You're not always c-betting this board. If again, this guy doesn't necessarily know, right, that you're playing a 3-bet or fold strategy. But if you are, you certainly have some check folds, right, on the flop. You can't bet I mean, there are certain boards that might be like range bet, but this is not going to be necessarily one of them on this connected type of board. But I would think that a queen is almost never folding here, possibly at least to the river. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, if you check the flop, where a lot of people will bet off with their top pair plus in a 3-bet pot in these spots at 2-5, it's different as you go up. That was another thing that I covered. The reason why it's different as you go up and why I might actually like a little bit more of a check raise at the smaller stakes is because as you move up, players know that you might have a queen here, you might have an overpair that you're just checking from out of position with sort of respect to the board. And I'm not saying this specific board is one of them. That doesn't really happen as much at 2-5. Usually at 2-5, when someone checks, they don't have a strong hand coming out of a 3-bet spot. And people will stab at it when you check. And it's like you get the bluffing equity that they bet. So what if they, you go for a check raise and they fold? If you had just bet, they're just going to fold anyways, right? But if they're always going to bet call with like Queen X, then this is a way to get some more money in your unblocking top pair. Now, to play the counter argument, you could say, well, if I went bet, maybe a 9 hero calls me down, and then at some point like 9x like folds out or something like that. But any type of draw that this guy might bet if you check to is going to call the flop bet, I would say. Even like King Jack maybe, and maybe King Jack no backdoor. So, I mean, that was just like sort of the first thing that I would say. Now, if you're gonna bet, if you're not gonna play check raise, then I probably, whether you want to call it exploitably or not, probably start with a large bet. Because the reason why that is because I just don't think that there's no bet here of like 40 or 50 that's going to get called, that's not going to get called by like 120, 130, unless it's like something unbelievably light. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I kind of like bet large or check raise.
Okay. I ended up going with bet small. I bet 60, just trying to keep him, like, basically make him float with almost his entire range on the flop.
So hero bets 60. Now, with that being said, CLP coach Nate says that in 3-bets pots, people will check back a ton. I think that's, again, more of a case, I think, sometimes at the higher stakes from what I have seen. So maybe we differ there. Now, if someone's going to check back a not, because again, like the other thing to notice here too, Seth, is like there's a difference between like king, queen, deuce. I know or king, queen, 5, right? So say it's like king, queen, 5, and a guy's got a queen. So he doesn't feel the need to bet for protection on king, queen, 5. But if a guy's got like 10-9 here on queen, 9, 5, I think that might get bet a fair amount for protection, just because there are some cards here that are overcards that people don't necessarily want to see. That's just one subtle thing. All right, so hero bet 60.
Yep, and button calls.
All right, so button calls. So, I mean, obviously he's calling with any pair, right? Any pair that connects with the board. Maybe he's folding out some like, I mean, I suppose like if you had like 6-6 or 7-7 here, no heart. I mean, still sort of like a backdoor straighting. I think those might even continue here too. So you've got...
Yeah, I thought all of his pocket pairs, even below 9s, would still call the $60.
Right, but not like 3s and 4s or something like
Sure.
that. Right. So you've got any connecting piece of the board, those types of pairs, flush draw, gut shots, things like that. All right, so the pot is now 280?
Yep, 280.
Okay.
And the turn is the king of hearts.
All right, that's not the best card in the world for you here, because obviously Jack 10 comes in, and front door hearts come in as well. Now, it's not like you use tiny sizing, because I was just trying to say, like, is there ever a frequency that draws raise flop? But it's not like you bet 30 or 40. You sort of bet in between, so a lot of draws very well might just call. And usually the play here, I would say, is respect for the board and check, although I have exploitively continued to bet here. And, you've got a 2-pair type of holding out here. You're going to get called by pair plus flush draw, things like that. So, I mean, you could make a case for betting, but this has got to be one of the more draw completing. It is the most draw completing card, maybe with the exception of maybe like the 8 of hearts. Yeah. Okay.
So I thought there was still value to be had here, but obviously the overbet strategy on a blank turn that goes out the window here.
Yeah.
So I bet 175.
So you did continue to bet.
I did, yeah. I think I can still get value from pair plus straight draw, maybe some pair plus flush draw with like ace queen with the ace of hearts.
And you can get king X to call if he's got king jack or king 10, right? I think that those types of holdings
the part of the pair plus straight draw.
have to call. I mean, if he's structuring his defense to 3-bet incorrectly, he should never have 9x with a heart in it because that would be an offsuit 9, right? Like 9-10 off shouldn't really be in. I was just trying to think about like now he's going to fold out 9x. And he shouldn't have any like 9x with a heart in it because it would be offsuit. Unless
call like jack 9 suited, 10-9 suited.
Right, but those don't have hearts in it.
Right, exactly.
Right, so now on the turn, it's pretty hard though. I mean, if he's got jack 9 of clubs, is he going to call the turn bet now on a heart? And I don't know, maybe one to the 4 ace 9 off with the ace of hearts. Could that possibly be defended versus somebody who's playing 3-bet or fold from the small blind? Very, very cuspy. You went 4x. That would be like literally like maybe the only hand that ace 9 with the ace of hearts, possibly. But anyways, all right. So you bet 175.
Yep, and button raises to 400.
Okay. Kind of small, huh?
Yeah, it surprised me to see a raise so small.
What's the deal with this guy?
So up to this point, he's been a pretty solid player. He definitely seemed confident enough to know that if he has a hand that you want to get stacks in with, he should be trying to get the SPR under 1 here, and that small of a raise does not accomplish that. So
did you think it was kind of like a stop raise, like king queen or something?
Possibly like king queen or jack 10 of a different suit, not hearts, that is maybe still afraid of a flush.
Yeah. I mean, you have a call here. I mean, there's nothing else to talk about, right? I mean, you're priced in the call, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if he turns over hearts. I mean, the pot's 175 into 280 is 455 plus 400 is 855, and it's 225 for you to call. I mean, you're getting almost 4-1 now, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I assume you call.
I do call. Yeah.
All right. So let me ask
raising is overplaying the hands.
So let me ask you this question now. So let's talk about some river scenarios. So now you put in 800 on the turn. The pot is 1,080 and 460, 550. You've got about 1,250 left, right, in your stack?
Yep.
So how are you approaching board pairing rivers here? And I guess they're not all the same, right?
Right.
Like a 9 and a 5 would be good, but a king or a queen is less good, maybe.
Yeah,
Are you just assuming that he's going to bet anyways?
I somewhat was thinking that. I mean, I floated the idea of like blocking a board pairing river, maybe even inducing a raise, but
well, I don't think you're going to get raised.
I wasn't going to come out and jam though.
No, but I don't think you're going to get raised with a block bet though when the board pairs. All right, so the pot's 1,080. Again, it's queen of hearts, 9 of spades, 5 of hearts. Button open to 20, hero 3-bet with pocket 5s to 80, button called, hero, flop bottom set, bet, sort of in between for 60, button called, turn king of hearts, putting a third flush draw out there, flush card. King, queen, 9-5, queen, 9-5, and then king. Hero bets 175, button raises to 400, kind of weirdish raise. Hero calls 1,080 with about, 1,250 back. All right, what's the river?
The river is the 4 of diamonds.
Okay, so that's just a brick.
Yep.
Okay.
So I checked on the river
Mhm.
and button jams for 1,260.
Now, what did you say about this guy again? What was his deal?
I mean, up to this point, he seemed like he's maybe a slightly winning player, has made a few hero calls, capable of bluffing.
Mm-hmm.
I did hero call him with third pair. I had 6-7, and a pair of sixes was third pair on an ace-high board earlier in the session. So I thought he might perceive me to be on the sticky side.
The thing about this is that so here's just one comment here. So even though, now obviously here's the thing, like say you had the nut flush here. I think against any somewhat, it's weird though, because he uses such a weird turn size. You know, if you were deeper and you used a more standardized like turn size, usually the play is to call and then check jam like a lot of rivers, right? Or something like that. And this, as opposed to necessarily like 3-bet turn. It's weird though with this turn sizing because you might think it's just going to go check so much. But the reason why I bring that up is because can a guy take this line with Jack 10 and jam? And I might do that if I was your opponent, if I don't think you're playing flushes in this way where you just have so many other hands besides flushes here that, Jack 10 is basically the nuts. But when you don't have a flush, then it starts to get, obviously it starts to get like harder for you to call down. I don't think that there really is no difference between any actual ranking of set here. Meaning like if you had queen or 9 here, it's basically the same thing, right? Now, if you had king, the turn might be a little bit more, you could make a case that the turn might be a little bit more dicey, having top set, but then he's sort of more skewed towards having draws. So you think he's 4-bet, you think he's 4-betting queen pre?
Queen is close. I think king for sure.
Okay. So you lose to all those hands anyways, a 9-9. I just wonder, like if I had queen here, I'd start thinking about like, well, is there ever a chance that like he was doing this with like 9-9 or something like that? You don't have to worry about that because you don't beat those hands anyways, right? Is he ever doing this with king queen? This is what this is what I go through whenever I have a very, very strong hand, but it's not the nuts. I ask myself. One of the first things I ask myself is, can my opponent be value betting something that's worse than my hand here for this sizing and this line?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like overplaying king queen to jam it in here. I can definitely have a fair amount of Jack 10 myself and flushes too. Less flushes when the king and queen of hearts are on the board, and I guess even the 5 factors in with like some ace 5 suiteds.
Are you saying that you would you have more of a call here if you had Jack 10, say, like of spades?
I think so, yeah.
Is that because you think he might be doing this with sets some of the time, or just
he could show up with some sets, yeah.
But here, of course, you don't beat any of those.
Right.
Chatter in the chat here too, like it's kind of an under-bluffs. The only thing that's strange here though, Seth, is the turn sizing.
That's what I put in the email to you. I thought, like, is he raising small on the turn to leave himself enough back to get me off a strong hand on the river?
And the other hand though that you might see this with though, that you might actually sometimes see played this way would be the nut flush, where he's just like, all right, well, I got to get some money in here, but I don't necessarily want to scare the guy away. Let me build the pot up. Oh, he called. Now I'm just gonna jam at the end. Now, with that being said, how many people are raising the turn with the nut flush? Obviously it's not a bad play to raise the turn with the nut flush, but I'm just saying the turn sizing is just a little bit like if it was a more standard size, like if he went, here's the thing, right? Like if he went to like, say like 550 and you called, that would have put an additional, 350 in the pot. The pot would have been like 1430. And then you would have had like 1100 left.
Right. Yeah. Less than a pot size bet.
So you think that that's more of a fold in that scenario?
I think the line makes more sense in that scenario for him to show up with a nut flush, or even like any flush, really, 8-7 of hearts, something like that. Even.
I just, again, I don't know obviously how the Seminole Hard Rock game plays, but I've played a lot of hours at 2-5. Is there a 5-10 game going that's going to at the same time, or is this the biggest game in the room?
There was one 5-10 table.
The reason why I ask that is because usually if you've got a game that's going that's one level higher, and you're playing 2-5, naturally the best players and the better players are going to gravitate to the higher stakes game. So the fact that this guy is in 2-5, unless he's like waiting for 5-10, means he's not in the game. So he's like a 2-5. You can kind of almost like pigeonhole him more towards like a typical 2-5 player. And I don't even know if I've like run into somebody at 2-5 at this depth in the game that I play that's sort of like willing to like run this bluff. It's such an under bluffed kind of line like in the population, especially with a guy who has the option to play in a higher game and isn't playing in it. And like I said, unless there was no higher game or he was waiting for the game somehow. Those little tidbits are close when are something to consider. So I really don't mind folding here.
Yeah, and I did end up folding here.
Okay. Did you get a reveal?
He had ace of hearts, jack of diamonds.
Wow. Ace of hearts, jack of diamonds. Wow. We didn't even, actually it's something that we didn't cover. We probably actually kind of washed off. We kind of washed over that. And it makes sense in this. I mean, talk about the turn sizing, but so he called the flop. Now, ace jack off is definitely a defend against a guy who's 3-betting, right? V-pipping.
For sure.
And so is ace 10 off, by the way, too. Because I had said ace 9, right? I had said ace 9, and we were talking about, well, maybe that's not a play like pre, right?
Ace 9 is close.
Right,
I think he would be folding that.
But ace jack and ace 10, so turns a gut shot with the nut flush draw, and then just kind of goes for it at the end. I mean, tap the table, move along. Don't let it get to you mentally.
I told him nice bluff and
yeah,
moved on.
Well, nice hand, though. Thanks for calling in.